Welcome back to the show, boys and girls. Another segment of Forgotten Failures. Now, this segment, Forgotten Failures, doesn't necessarily mean they're bad cars. They just had a very limited production run and kind of forgotten about. And we kind of dive into its history, lineage, and what kind of happened to it. Today, we're going to be focusing on the Dodge Neon SRT-4. So, this is a car. I was in high school when this thing was revealed, if you will. 2002, I was a senior in high school. I remember Motor Trend, Car and Driver, all the publications, etc. Got me really hyped about it. At the time, I owned a 97 Neon RT. I love that little car. And the idea that they're making this Evo STI contender got me like super hyped. I was like, holy shit. I remember I was taking some sort of computer class in high school, and I did a report, like a multimedia type report on it. No one else in the class or the teacher gave a shit, and I was super excited, and people thought it was weird. They're like, it's a fucking Neon. And I was like, say again? So yeah, I was super excited about this damn thing. I never owned one. So yeah, let's dive in and look at the history of this thing and see what happened to it. First introduced in 2003, and I think it came out in that same year, like January or something. It ran for 3 years, 03, 04, 05. They made just under 25,000 total units, which isn't that much. And before the 03 SRT came out, the 2000 Neon, which the Neon, the second gen, only ran for 5 years. It's a very short production time for any car, really. Look at the C4 Corvette. That thing ran for 12 damn years, and it was still selling okay by 96. Not great, but it was still selling. And the Neon sold pretty well, which I thought was strange that they axed it so quickly. So besides the SRT, you had the SE, you had the SXT, and the RT. The RT had 150 horsepower, the other two had, I think, 132 horsepower. All three of those shared a single overhead cam motor, nothing too exciting. It wasn't until you got to the SRT-4, which they put a 2.4, made it a Mitsubishi Turbo, which I think is the same one from the Evo, if I'm not mistaken. And that thing, from the factory, I'm pretty sure was underrated. For 03 model, I think it was rated at 215 horsepower. The 04 and 05 was 230. But dynoing it, a lot of people would get those exact numbers. But if you know anything about dynoing, you lose about 15-20% slop in the drivetrain. So those things were probably putting out close to 250 to 260 from the factory. And who knows why they did that? Insurance reasons. This is marketed towards younger kids, if you will, 18 to 25 year olds. Now, before Team SRT, it was the PVO team, which was Performance Vehicles Operation Team. They wanted to take the previous model RTs up a step to compete with the Japanese cars at the time. They started farting around with the idea of turbocharging a 2.0, which eventually went to a 2.4, which was actually shared with the same motor as the PT Loser. But they had to change the intake manifold. So the only real difference between the SRT 2.4 and the PT Cruisers is just the intake manifold and the turbo, and I think some internals were also replaced to compensate for the more power it was putting out. Besides the power plant, the suspension was upgraded, the brakes were upgraded, the aero was upgraded, the transmission was taken out of a turbo diesel European van, of all things, so 5-speed. The car was a proper sports car. It only came in a manual transmission. The rear brakes were the same as the standard Neon. And I loved the rims on this thing, the little fork-looking rims. I thought those were so damn cool. And actually, Mini, I own one right now. I'm trying to get the rims from the first gen S that kind of look very similar to that. Off topic, but if you like my Mini stuff, just be ready for those rims coming. And the tires used a Michelin Pilot Sport Cup, which is kind of ahead of its time for the time. The interior, it wasn't a huge departure from the base and SXT RT models, but it was enough to set it aside. It had kind of an afterthought turbo boost gauge that looked like they just kind of threw it in there and put some putty around it and painted it and called it a day. It was kind of goofy. The gauge cluster was painted silver with a white background. You had a long shift knob with a little cue ball type shifter knob on it. It was silver. I think it was plastic. It looked really cool. The seats were inspired from a Dodge Viper, which 18-year-old me thought that was the coolest damn thing ever. And along with that, there was some aluminum satin type trim on the handles, and other little things had some little SRT touches to it. And just like the other Neons, only the front ones had power windows, the rear ones were manual, which is one of the craziest things I've ever seen on a car. Any car do, I guess, to save money. How much they're saving by doing that, I don't know, but it's kind of strange. And the car was manufactured in the US, in Illinois. Illinois? Someone will correct me, I'm sure. So at the time this thing came out in 03, they marketed it, Dodge did, very smartly, as the second fastest car in the lineup next to the Dodge Viper. And it was fast. This thing was doing 0 to 60 in like 5.6 seconds. That got people really amped up, all this marketing. And initially Dodge was gonna make like 2,500 of these a year, but they saw all of the interest and they're like, hey, let's make a few more for the introductory year. I think they bumped it up to about 12,000, and then the 2 subsequent years they made roughly 8,000. So they made a lot more than they anticipated on making, but not enough in my opinion. I think they should have ran it for like 2 or 3 more production years. That's just me. I think at the time there was a huge market for it. But as you know, 2005 came and they axed the Neon, and then we got that shit show of a car, the Caliber, which is another video for another time. So let's focus on performance for a second, just performance. Like I said, this thing had a 2.4 turbocharged engine. The 03 model year had 215 horsepower, 245 pound-feet of torque. 2004, 2005, the numbers were bumped up to 230 and about 250 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60, roughly 5.5 seconds. Quarter mile, 14.1, which at the time was pretty damn quick. And it had a top speed, roughly 155 miles an hour, and that was governed. You probably could get 165 out of it with the aero on it. It was a pretty sleek car. And over its 3-year run, it won numerous awards from different racing circuits and segments. And consumer reception was pretty much positive. So what happened? Why did it fail? Like I mentioned earlier, it only had the Neon, the second gen, only had a 5-year run. And only 3 of those had the high-end performance model. Now, you can still buy the Neon in Mexico, believe it or not, yes. I think it's a Dodge Dart there, it's just rebadged as a Neon, I think. And they sold pretty well, especially the SRT. They sold way more than they anticipated, like 600% more than they planned on. So after looking all over tech forums, bulletins, Mopar sites, all kind of different sources, I cannot find definitive answers of why they pulled the plug so soon. Some suggest the platform is ready for a refresh, but at that same time, it was built on the same platform as the PT Loser, and that ran for 6 more years. Some suggest it was simply too fast for the target audience it was trying to sell to, insurance claims, etc. These things were dropping like flies very quickly. And others will tell you it was just the Neon, and that's why it failed, because of the name. They did try to market it as an SRT-4, but everyone knew it was a Neon. The only difference on the outside was the wing, rims, a little bit of aero. If you didn't know much about cars, it's just a Neon. And a lot of people would kind of poke fun at that. It never bothered me that was a Neon. I liked the Neon, you know. Maybe Dodge thought it was falling behind fit and finish and tech at the time. The panel gaps were pretty atrocious. The plastics inside were pretty gross. Technologically, it was subpar compared to its competitors. And to be honest, we may never know why Dodge pulled the plug so quick and we only got 25,000 of these fast little Neons. Looking around on eBay, AutoTrader, Car Gurus, it's almost impossible to find a low model example unmolested. If you do, you're gonna spend a lot of money. At the time I'm filming this, I found one under 50,000 miles. It was an 05 commemorative edition. They want like $26,000 for it. Kind of crazy. You can find some clapped out ones for a decent price, but you're looking at, second engine swap, third turbo, rim's been changed 14 times, painted 3 times, And my opinion on the car, if I came across a good example of one, I'd probably scoop it up for a decent price. They sound incredible. If you haven't heard one in person, the damn thing sounds like a V8. I don't know how they did it, but it sounds like a Camaro or something. It's fucking nuts. I did get to drive one later on. Very minimal turbo lag. The thing had so much damn torque. At the time when I drove it, I think I had a 350Z, and it felt quicker. It was more fun to drive. The clutch felt like shit, and so did the shifter. But other than that, it sounded so good. Yeah, that's pretty rad. And I mean, the design was questionable, but man, that wing. So that's gonna do it for this video, guys. Hope you guys appreciated it. And I have so many unique little cars coming up for this segment. There's no shortage. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and check out my other one I did on the Thunderbird Super Coupe if you haven't already. It's pretty neat. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.